I bought this basil plant in the grocery store just 8 days ago, put it in a sunny windowsill, and watered it whenever it needed it. So it's hard to understand why it looks like this. Well, there's a few reasons why this happens, and I'm going to share them in this video, as well as show you how to propagate these few plants into an endless season supply of fresh basil. The main reason these grocery store basils suffer is because there are just too many of them packed in this one pot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill all these individual pots up with this Fox Farm ocean forest. You can use any good quality soil. I'll just fill all these up. This soil is a little dry. Normally I would probably put it in another larger container and evenly moisten all the soil before putting it into these smaller ones. But it's not going to hurt anything as long as we water thoroughly as soon as we transplant these. And my wife always loves when I do these projects in her kitchen. Now we're just going to gently tease apart each individual plant. Try to damage as less root structure as possible, but inevitably you'll damage a lot of it. And you may lose a couple of these in the transplant process, but most of them will survive if you're careful enough. These little ones you can decide to keep or just toss, but we'll see how many pots we have left on this one. And any dead, dying, or diseased leaves, just toss those out. All right, that's all the strong, healthy ones, I think, in that one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm not going to plant that guy. He's a little too small. You can if you want, though. And I'll take these down, plant them in. I'll give these guys a good drink. Now all the transplants that have multiple nodes, I'm going to come up above a node, clip that off, so it'll go right below that node there. And then we're going to trim off everything, save those for the kitchen. Everything but the top couple leaves there. And then we're just going to propagate that into some water. We'll get the leaves out of the water there. I'll probably get a shot glass or something instead of this jar since this is so small. Same thing with these guys. I'm going to cut off right above the node there and then trim that up below the node. Again, save these big leaves for dinner. And since this guy doesn't have as many leaves, I'm just going to trim off that dead one and let him recover there. You definitely want to leave some leaves on so that it can continue the photosynthesis process and give a little more energy to that root development down below. Now that these 4 are done, let's make room for the rest of these guys. Now that the soil's had, that dry soil has had a little bit of time to take in some of that moisture, I'm going to just water one more time. Get all these nice and moist. Basil doesn't like to be waterlogged, but it likes consistently moist soil. So make sure you water consistently and then have good drainage on whatever pot you're using. So let's put these to the side and finish propagating the rest of these. Basil is the best smelling plant in the world. I like to just snack on the leaves too. But back to propagation here. You can see how many plants were planted in these little pots here. Each one of these little stems was a seed at one time. So to get a big, full, bushy looking plant or plants, you can either plant one seed and then do a pruning technique that I'll show you in a minute, and you can get a plant that's even bushier than this by doing that. And that gives that one plant's roots plenty of room to take up all the nutrients it needs. And the alternative is to get a short-living many plants in one pot like growers do for the grocery stores. And that's fine, I guess, if you just want to harvest everything at once, use it for your recipe, and then have to either buy more or plant more seeds. But I prefer just to have a few bushy plants that I can harvest what I need and then have them grow back by the time that I need more basil. As you can see here, pruning your basil makes a huge difference in the leaf production. I pulled both of these basils out of my garden. This one is a Thai basil that was not pruned at all. So you can see how it just focuses its energy on growing the main shoot, and these side shoots remain very small. And this Genovese basil was pruned continuously over the last 3 months. So if we wanted this Thai basil to be a bushier plant, while it was growing, what we would have done was cut directly above a node here. That would have made these two side shoots become two new lead stems. As you can see on this plant here, the main stem was clipped above the node, which forced these two side shoots to now become the lead stems, and they grew. And you can continuously do this as the plant grows taller, like it was clipped here, and now these two shoots become two lead stems. But you don't want to get too vigorous with your pruning. You want to leave plenty of leaves for it to continue photosynthesis and give the plant more energy. But you'll find a happy balance eventually, and with practice, you'll get really good at it. What you want to avoid doing is cutting off too much of the plant structure. So theoretically, I could cut this one here, which would force these two baby shoots to become main shoots, but its growth would be much slower than a bigger plant that had more leaves for energy production. But with these long, leggy grocery store basil, we just have to work with what we got. So they're kind of the exception to that rule. So what I'm going to do, I'm not going to actually transplant the rooted plants of these smaller ones. I'm just going to do water propagation cutting. So I'm just going to find all the big, healthy ones. And I'm going to trim up the leaves. Leave that guy like that. Now that I have all those trimmed up, I'm going to just save this for eating. And I'm going to put these cuttings into our jar of water so they can root. And with these smaller cuttings, I'm going to show you that you can insert them directly into soil, although the success rate on this technique may be less than the others. You really have to make sure that you keep the soil moist until those roots form, or else all of them will die. And make sure that when you're inserting these into the soil, that you're getting at least one node into the soil. So off of our grocery store basil, we have these direct transplants here that have a little bit of a root system on them. We have our cuttings that we're going to be rooting in this jar of water, and we have the cuttings that we directly inserted into the soil here. So within anywhere from 4 days to 2 weeks, we should see root development starting on these plants. And as soon as these water cuttings have a good amount of roots on them, maybe 1 to 2 inches, you can then transplant those into their own pots. If you follow the advice in this video, you'll be making batches of homemade pesto within a few months. But before I leave you, there's a few things I want to mention. This grocery store basil was likely grown under grow lights. So if you don't harden it off before you put it directly outside in the full sunlight, it's going to burn up and die. Also, you need to make sure that it gets adequate sunlight Basil needs at least 6 to 8 hours of full sunlight a day. I'm going to be putting most of these under grow lights, and when I put them under grow lights, I like to go 16 hours on and then 8 hours off for the night. For the first few days, your cuttings are going to be in shock and they're going to look kind of sad, but you'll be surprised about how many of them pull through. When cloning in water, make sure that your water temperature stays around 75 to 85 degrees. If it's too cold, root growth will be very slow, and if it's too hot, it could kill the plants. Once you've had success and you get vigorous growth, try not to let your cuttings go to flower like this, unless your goal is to attract pollinators or save the seed for the following season. As soon as you see flower formation, cut it off immediately. I'll be posting an update video on all these plants within a YouTube short in a few weeks. So if you don't want to miss that video, subscribe. And if you'd like to help my new channel out with the algorithm, hit that like button and leave a comment.